can I ask you to put yourself in the middle of the page? Now, the point about putting yourself in the middle of the page is that I assume that everyone here regards themselves as a person with talent. But I want you to see yourself having a gift of talent. You have a gift. So talent is there in the middle of the page, and that's you. And then I want you to say to yourself, who's the A1? I want you to find at least one other person who is A1. That is, you give that gift of talent to another person. That is, that person in work, in your life at work, is dependent on you. It depends on your talent to work. So there must, if you can't find anyone, I say to you, what are you doing? What are you doing at work if you're not giving the gift of your talent to someone else? That enables them to do whatever they need to do. And that might be to serve the customer, or it may well indeed be the customer or client. So the first move I want you to see is that you are a person of talent, and others, at least one other, probably many more of course, but at least one other that you can name gets your gift of talent. The second move I want you to make is go to A2. You are a person with the gift of talent, but you depend on at least one other person whose gift you receive. So talent is something that you receive from another person, because to do your job you need their talent. Okay? For good or ill, by the way, for the moment. I just want you to think about the way this is working. So the first move is your gift goes to someone else and they do something. The second move is the A2 move, is someone gives their gift of talent to you to do your job. Okay? So what you have is, so far, a line of exchanges from A2 through you to A1. And already I want you to think of I'm going to give this a word, because what usually happens when people do work with me is they learn the odd new word. So the word I want you to learn today is talenting. There's a talenting going on. It's an exchange process. Okay? Now the next move I want you to make is the B1. B1. There is at least one other person for whom the exchange of talents, the exchange of the gift of talent is mutual. That is, you need them and they need you. You are interdependent. You are interdependent. So there's at least one other person who you work with, and you rely on them and they rely on you. You couldn't really do your job. Either of you couldn't do your job without this exchange. So the exchange is a mutual exchange, the exchange of gifts of talent. Okay, so that's another talenting process that's going on. Only it's reciprocal, sharing, backwards and forwards. And then the final move, and this is, you can see different types of talenting emerging, is, as you can see, the C process. The C process is a group of people, a team, a department, a group of other people who are interdependent with each other. It's your team. And in that process, the talenting is, as you can see, I've got 3 there, you could have half a dozen there. The crucial point you're making, and you're proving to yourself, in that process there is a mutuality across the team. Okay, and I see this all the time. Actually, what you have across the organisation, and even the small organisation, you'll already, if you're getting beyond more than 5 people already, this starts to happen, is what you have are these talenting units, which are now called talenting units spread across the whole organisation, or what you call the organisation, for good or ill. They may work well, they may not work well. The crucial thing about it is that these interdependencies, these exchanges of gifts, one way or another, or mutual, one way, mutuality is happening, and there are connections between the units, and you rely on this. Now, this may or may not work well. This may or may not work. I mean, people of talent don't necessarily do the right thing. They may believe they are, but they can still do it wrong. And people in these units may well not be doing the right thing, but they believe they are. Now, on the left-hand side, I see a lot of talent, and there's the boxes again. The boxes. Let's put the people in the boxes. Keith brought that out very strongly, I think. And he would be the first to agree that's not just the way you do it. I mean, we do need to have that degree of order. We do need to sit down. The problem comes when it's the only thing you have. Because if you only have the degree of order, what you're really missing is all the stuff the other side, where the talenting is going on. I look at evidence, and I'm not going to go through all of this because you can, the slides were made available, and more than that, you can go to the CIPD website and download surveys. So I've taken these from the most recent surveys. One of the first things to note is that fewer organisations are doing talent management. There we are. 54% in 2012 compared to 60-odd% a year ago. It's already on the wane. Why are we doing workshops on this? It's already going out of fashion, it appears. 20%, and this is a large, quite large, about 500 in the survey, mainly HR people, as you might imagine, CIPD. Only 20% had a formal definition, and quite a number don't believe they're effective. What I really want to hone in on, though, is that the next point, that in most organisations, it's the high potentials or senior managers who are the main targets. Individualised stuff. So here's another word, atomisation. The other part there I see is this lovely contradiction. 66% believe the exclusive focus on high potentials and senior managers had a lot of demotivation on those not chosen. Only 29% believed and then in the contradiction, only 29% believe you should have that focus. So lovely contradictions, aren't they? Interesting. 29% says we shouldn't do it, but we're doing it. What I think we're lacking here is the ability to broaden our perspectives and consider the options and the choices here. And what we have found, and we've done it from the research, so we kind of looked at a lot of cases and we produced something like this. Well, the first point is the vertical dimension. There's that you can indeed have a choice between an exclusive focus on talent or an inclusive focus on talent. So that's a choice you can make as an organisation on that dimension. Shall we go for the top 10% or shall we see more and more of our organisation as full of talent? So the exclusive and inclusive focus, I think, is one of the dimensions that you can consider. Now, the point about you can do both, of course, and I think that's one of the ways of getting out of this. But the other dimension, the horizontal dimension, is there which gives you the choice between taking a more individual approach, which is what most organisations do, well, 90% of organisations, for me, and what the other 10% do, I'm not quite sure, but most organisations still going for the paraphernalia of trying to get order on it, and the only way they can seem to get order on it is to do this atomisation, because the tools presented to you are atomised. Part of the problem here is the industry itself. I do know a lot of consultancies that turned what they previously had, which were atomised, into what you now call talent tools. But what became evident to us is that some organisations were indeed intuitively, without being explicit about it, embracing collectivity, that is, understanding these interdependencies. Now, what I think you can see on the left-hand side, you've got your choices between selecting the different elites for the different pipelines, or the everyone approach, creating multiple pipelines and multiple opportunities. But on the right-hand side, you start to see the different, and you can see that if you are an inclusive collective, what you try to do is you try to work out the networks, or you try to work out the different communities where the talenting is occurring, so that you can add value. And the exclusive approach might be much more focused on particular positions, the A communities, or the B communities, or the A players. Now, it seems to me that this does give you the option, but how do you get into it? For me, there are a load of problems which I can easily point to in case studies in the literature, which actually tell us we're not getting very far with this. The one of the things I would pick out is that in different business units, particularly in larger organisations, what starts happening is you get a varied response because there's different cultures and histories in different organisations who will respond in different ways. in some bits of the organisation it'll be highly supported, and then there'll other bits where it's rubbish, it's not working well. And my experience in big organisations says this is quite likely, but even in smaller organisations it's the case as well. And often it's down to the leadership and the culture, and particularly the reactions of line managers. The danger, I think, at the moment is it becomes another totem of respectability. That is, like appraisal, in 40 years of work, you have to have it, because if you don't have it, people say, why haven't you got it? And then they criticise you for not having it. So talent may have been one of those as well. You have to have it. What I really want to bring out is this tension between the human capital angle, which is individuals atomised, and the social capital angle, which is the network part of it, which is the process of talent exchange for mutual benefit. Well, for me, there's an inherent tension between the formal talent management architecture, which you can find in any large organisation that has got someone called a head of talent. That's their job, to find these bits of architecture. They're not wrong. I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm just saying this is just part of the picture. So they come up with the boxes, the meaning of talent, the meaning of performance, the meaning of potential, to fill the boxes, to fill the groups. And of course, what you then talk about metaphors of pipelines. But then there's an inherent tension with what I've said with the talenting that's going on. And the reference back to, I put it in a cloud because what I'm trying to say, it's vague and difficult to understand. And how do we get to it? Which talenting activities are well known to you? Which are well known but difficult to specify in detail? These are kind of the important question. Is the talenting aligned? Because I think the alignment with strategy or direction is crucial, but is the talenting aligned? And can you ever know all the talenting? So, how do you get to it? You have to map this carefully. You have to map this in an engaged way with leaders. We did this with one organisation a few years ago. I didn't do it. I advised the person who did it. He said to me, how can I help these people understand it? And we did it. And the consequence was a completely new understanding of how value was being added in a very large business. How value was being added in a very large business. And an uncovering of specialism. An uncovering of stuff that they didn't know was there. And of course this would take a long process in order to verify this, because I defy most leaders to fill this grid, this diagram in. And what I then discovered, I never thought there'd be the day that I would be quoting from the Bible. But I was introduced to this by a friend, and this is from Matthew, the parable of the talents. Okay? And the crucially interesting thing that I liked about this notion of talent is, to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, each according to his ability. So that exchange, but then he went away, and he who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded them, and he made 5 talents more. Can you see how that collective exchange process is a creative process? Also, what you can get from here, you can just see it at the top, right? Talent, the word talent comes from the Latin, and really what it was a sum of money. Talent in Roman times and in Greek times was a gift, a sum of money. It only became understood as ability in the Middle Ages, in medieval times. So really what was interesting is it's always been really there as a gift, but we haven't quite understood it. But it's only a gift if it's received, if it's made use of, if it's exchanged. And of course, what we have to make anything in this world in an organised way, which is what organisations are for, you have to have this collective understanding. Otherwise, the whole thing becomes a waste of time.